Hey, you ever have that one moment where you just snap? For me, it was standing on my porch, soaked to the bone in the middle of a hurricane, watching 10 tons of gravel spill across my front yard like some kind of apocalyptic landslide. 3 minutes earlier, I was shaking with rage, staring across the street at Karen, our HOA queen, peering through her blinds like she'd just orchestrated the storm itself. She thought she'd won, she always did. But that day, she had no clue what she'd unleashed. My name's Jake Turner, 42, construction supervisor by day, pinball machine restorer by obsession, and up until that moment, I was the guy who'd rather eat glass than pick a fight. I moved to Willow Creek Grove 2 years ago, chasing that suburban dream, quiet streets, tidy lawns, maybe a gnome statue if you're feeling wild. I wanted calm. What I got was Karen. Karen Mitchell, late 50s, always in a visor and a pressed polo, wielding her HOA binder like it's the Constitution. This woman once slapped a $50 fine on a neighbor for leaving a garden hose coiled improperly for 9 minutes. 9 freaking minutes. I could handle her nonsense, though the rules, the side-eye, the passive-aggressive notes in my mailbox. What I couldn't handle was her stealing my sandbags in the middle of a damn hurricane. Let me rewind. Hurricane Clara was barreling toward us, a Category 2 with a bad attitude, and I was in my basement, polishing the flippers on my vintage Star Wars pinball machine. That basement's my sanctuary, thousands of bucks and countless hours sunk into those machines, each one pulled from some dusty warehouse or junkyard, brought back to life. No way was I letting floodwater take them out. So, I hit the hardware store like it was the Super Bowl of survival shopping. After dodging carts and sweaty preppers, I scored the last stack of Sandbags 50 of M, my ticket to keeping my basement dry. Back home, I spent hours stacking them around my window wells, my back door, every vulnerable spot. I was drenched, aching, but proud, like I'd just built the Great Wall of Suburbia. Then I felt that shift in the air, like a hawk circling. Karen. She strolled across her perfect lawn, clipboard in hand, looking like a country club shark. "Jake," she said, her voice all honey and venom. "We need to talk." I wiped the sweat off my face, forced a grin. "Just getting ready for the storm, Karen." She didn't blink. "Those sandbags violate HOA Rule 4A, Section 2, no temporary structures without prior approval. They're an eyesore, and they're 2 inches over the property line. Remove them by 6 p.m. I stared at her, my brain short-circuiting. "Karen, there's a hurricane coming. Tonight." She tapped her pen on her clipboard. "Standards, Jake. We all make sacrifices for the community." Then she turned and glided back to her house, leaving me standing there, fists balled, wondering if I'd just hallucinated. I called my buddy Mike, the kind of guy who'd once TP'd a neighbor's tree for criticizing his Christmas lights. "She gave me an hour to take him down, Mike, or I'm fined." He laughed so hard I thought he'd choke. "What's she gonna do, steal him?" We both laughed. Big mistake. 15 minutes later, I glanced out my window, and my sandbags were gone. Poof. Vanished. I ran outside, followed faint tire tracks across the street, and there they were, my sandbags, neatly stacked around Karen's basement like she was fortifying a castle. She didn't just take them, she executed a heist with military precision. I called Mike back, my voice shaking. "She stole them." "She actually stole my sandbags." There was a long pause, then a low whistle. "Jake, that's not a fight. That's war." War it was. I called my old work buddy, Tony, who runs a landscaping crew and has a fleet of dump trucks. Tony's the kind of guy who looks like he benches tractor tires for fun. I told him the story, and he didn't even hesitate. "Say no more. I got you." 20 minutes later, his truck roared into my driveway, and with one glorious tilt, 10 tons of gravel came crashing down onto my lawn. It was chaos, a beige avalanche that buried my grass and sent a cloud of dust into the storm. Karen's curtains twitched. I swear I saw her jaw hit the floor. But I wasn't done. I grabbed a shovel, and for the next hour, in the pouring rain, I sculpted that gravel into a massive, defiant ridge around my house. I called it the fortress, part flood defense, part middle finger to Karen. The next morning, my basement was bone dry, my pinball machine safe, and I sipped my coffee like a king. Then Sarah showed up. She's my neighbor, a landscape designer with a sharp tongue and a knack for making work boots look like high fashion. She handed me a mug and smirked. "Post-apocalyptic vibe, huh?" "Very Mad Max." I grinned. "It's for drainage." She laughed. Sure it is. By the way, Karen's prize azaleas are basically a lake now. Karma's a savage. But the HOA wasn't laughing. 2 days later, a letter arrived, $100 a day in fines for unauthorized landscaping, plus threats of liens and lawsuits. I felt the walls closing in. Mike, over beers, laid it out. You gotta fight dirty, man. Use their own rules. Make that gravel pile legal. I turned to Sarah, who was already sketching ideas on a napkin. I need plans, I said. Something so legit they choke on it. She grinned like a kid with a new toy. Let's make it a masterpiece. We called Tony again, and over the next week, we turned the fortress into something insane, a xeriscaped wonderland with native grasses, a dry creek bed, even a little bench for contemplation. It was ridiculous, beautiful, and 100% to code. At the next HOA meeting, Karen came for blood. He's turned his yard into a gravel pit, she screeched. I stood, unrolled Sarah's blueprints, and walked the board through every rule I'd followed, down to the last comma in Section 7B. The room went dead quiet. A few board members smirked. They had to approve it. Karen's face was the color of her ruined azaleas. She didn't quit, though. She called animal control, claimed I was hiding protected lizards in my gravel. She filed noise complaints, left ominous flyers about erosion hazards. Then came the gut punch, a city stop work order. My creek bed was redirecting water into a municipal line, and I needed a $5,000 hydrological survey. I was screwed. But Sarah and Mike weren't done. Sarah had access to zoning records. Mike had a cousin in City Hall, don't ask. They dug up a gem. My lot sat on a 1960s agricultural easement, still active, that allowed any structure for soil and water management. My fortress was untouchable. Better yet, we found Karen's precious cedar deck was built smack over a utility easement, completely illegal. I printed the documents, walked across the street, and knocked on her door. She opened it, smirking. Ready to give up, Jake? I handed her the papers, my voice steady. I'm offering a deal. Drop the fines, approve my project, and we forget each other exists. Or this goes to the city, and your deck's toast. Her face went white. She didn't say a word, just shut the door. By noon, the HOA emailed me full approval. A week later, the fortress was done, grasses swaying, bench gleaming, a legit work of art. Sarah and I sat there one evening, watching the sunset. She nudged me. For a giant screw you to Karen, this is weirdly peaceful. I laughed. It's not a screw you. It's a biodiverse, multi-tiered xeriscape masterpiece. She snorted, and I leaned in, kissed her. The neighborhood quiet for the first time in months. A year later, new folks moved in, nice couple, asked if the HOA was chill. I cracked a beer, grinned. Sit down. Let me tell you about the fortress. So, was I right? Was I petty? Or was this just old-school justice, served with 10 tons of gravel? Hit the comments, tell me about your HOA nightmares, your wins, your revenge stories. Did I go too far, or did Karen get what was coming? Let's talk.